Hi, today we will discuss about limbic system. The limbic system is a group of interconnected cortical and subcortical structures dedicated to linking visceral states and emotion to cognition and behavior. The use of the term limbic has changed over time. Initially, it was introduced by Thomas Willis to designate a cortical border encircling the brainstem. The Latin word limbus itself means border, and this term has been used in more recent times to indicate a progressively increasing number of regions dedicated to a wide range of functions. Paul Broca held the view that Lagrange lobe limbic was mainly an olfactory structure common to all mammalian brains. After Broca's publication in 1878, the accumulation of experimental evidence from ablation studies in animals broadened the role of the limbic structures to include other aspects of behavior such as controlling social interactions and behavior, consolidating memories, and forming emotions. Anatomical and physiological advances led James Papic to describe a neural circuit for linking action and perception to emotion. The Papic Circuit consists of the hippocampus connecting via the fornix to the mammillary body, which connects via mammillothalamic tract to the anterior nuclei of the thalamus and thus back to the cingulate cortex. According to Papic, emotion arises either from cognition entering the circuit from the cortex through the hippocampus or from visceral and somatic perceptions entering the circuit through the hypothalamus. A decade later, Paul Yakovil proposed that the orbitofrontal cortex, insula, amygdala, and anterior temporal lobe form a network underlying emotion and motivation. Paul MacLean crystallized previous work by incorporating both Papic's and Yakovil's view into a model of the limbic system. MacLean concluded that the limbic cortex, together with the limbic subcortical structures, is a functionally integrated system interconnected by short and long range fiber bundles. This figure shows the anatomical structures of the limbic system, demonstrating that they are an interconnected complex of basal brain elements. Located in the middle of all these is the extremely small hypothalamus, which from a physiological point of view is one of the central elements of the limbic system. In addition to their roles in behavioral controls, these areas control many internal conditions of the body, such as body temperature, osmolarity of the body fluids, and the drives to eat and drink, and to control body weight. These internal functions are collectively called vegetative functions of the brain, and their control is closely related to behavior. This schematic illustration shows the key position of the hypothalamus in the limbic system. Surrounding the hypothalamus, we can see other subcortical structures of the limbic system, including the septum, the para-olfactory area, the anterior nucleus of the thalamus, portions of the basal ganglia, the hippocampus, and the amygdala. And surrounding the subcortical limbic areas is the limbic cortex, composed of a ring of cerebral cortex in each side of the brain, beginning in the orbitofrontal area on the ventral surface of the frontal lobes, extending upward into the subcallosal gyrus, then over the top of the corpus callosum onto the medial aspects of the cerebral hemisphere in the cingulate gyrus, and finally passing behind the corpus callosum and downward onto the ventromedial surface of the temporal lobe to the parahippocampal gyrus and ancus. Thus, on the medial and ventral surface of each cerebral hemisphere is a ring of mostly paleocortex that surrounds a group of deep structures intimately associated with overall behavior and emotions. In turn, this ring of limbic cortex functions as a two-way communication and association linkage between the neocortex and the lower limbic structures. The limbic system works in collaboration with other brain systems. Therefore, a more complete theory of the function of the limbic system can be developed only in tandem with a more complete understanding of the entire brain. An important route of communication between the limbic system and the brainstem is the medial forebrain bundle, which extends from the septal and orbitofrontal regions of the cerebral cortex downward through the middle of the hypothalamus to the brainstem reticular formation. This bundle carries fibers in both directions, forming a trunk-like communication system. A second route of communication is through short pathways among the reticular formation of the brainstem, thalamus, hypothalamus, and most other contiguous areas of the basal brain. The hypothalamus, despite its very small size of only a few cubic centimeters, has two-way communicating pathways with all levels of the limbic system. In turn, it and its closely allied structures send output signals in three directions. First is the backward and downward signaling to the brainstem, mainly into the reticular areas of the mesencephalon, pons and medulla, and from these areas into the peripheral nerves of the autonomic nervous system. Next is the upward signaling toward many higher areas of the diencephalon and cerebrum, especially to the anterior thalamus and limbic portions of the cerebral cortex. And it also sends output signals into the hypothalamic infundibulum to control or partially control most of the secretory functions of both the posterior and anterior pituitary glands. Thus, the hypothalamus, which represents less than 1% of the total brain mass, is one of the most important of the control pathways of the limbic system. It controls most of the vegetative and endocrine functions of the body, as well as many aspects of emotional behavior. In our next video, we will discuss the role of limbic system in behavior. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please share and subscribe.